instead of making a card today, I just thought I'd do something a little bit different, you know. I thought I'd make a bookmark. Anyway, and I have a little bit of an obsession with bookmarks as well. I know Mum and Helen will probably know this. I don't know if you remember anyway, but yeah, it's one of those things that it's a really nice souvenir from places you go, isn't it? And actually thinking about it, I actually when I got my collection, I'm not going to show you the lot, I won't bore you all, but I did bring on the very first bookmark that started it all off. I don't know if you remember this, Mum. It's looking a bit worse for wear, so this must have actually been one that I used. And this dates all the way back to 1987. So I won't tell you how old I am, but that's how long I've had it. And since then, well, the last count, I had about 270 bookmarks, and I know that I've got a few over the last couple of years that I haven't added to it yet, actually. So that number will go up. So that's just a little fun fact about me. So let's get making then. So as I say, I'm using the tropical panel. So this again is a set with layering stencils, and you can also buy the embossing folder with the die. They come separately. You don't have to buy them as a pair, but it's a great set if you can get the two together, of course. Now I won't be embossing today because, as you can imagine, if you emboss and use it as a bookmark, it just might be that little bit too bulky, but there's nothing to say that you can't. Or if you wanted to use this panel for something else, then obviously you can emboss. But I do want to use the die from it, obviously. It's great that we can make this from one A4 sheet of paper, and I'm using Lisa's super smooth cardstock. So basically you want to get your sheet of A4 and section it up evenly into three sort of 10 centimeters wide strips. Okay, so I'm just using the first one initially. I'll come on to the other two, what we need the other two for, a little bit later on. So we're just going to start off with the stenciling. Now I have a whole array of colours here, and I think I've done my best to get all my brushes in order in front of me as well, so hopefully I've got myself organised. So as you can see, because it's a DL stencil, it fits on a third of an A4 sheet of paper, which is perfect. So we can get on and get stenciling. Now I've gone for a lot brighter colours than I usually do today, purely because they're tropical and they're stunning flowers. It would be a really lovely project to make this 2 or 3 times over and use different colours just to see how it comes out. So I'm going to start off with a painted eggshell. What I really like are these panels in the background. They really do give like the driftwood effect in the background, and I couldn't make up my mind whether I wanted to go with like the natural wood panel, so go with perhaps the almond frosting or whatever, but I think I might leave that for another day because the painted eggshell colour really won through. This is one of my favourites, and I'm actually going to do this quite light in the background because obviously we want the colours of the flowers to really come forward, and we want this just to be a really nice accent in the background. And I really like the way that this builds up. Now I'm just going to add a slight bit of shading, in as much as I'm going to put probably more ink on this side of the stencil for the panel than this side, so that does give a little bit of an effect of a shading as you go along. So if you can see that there, that the colour sort of really does sort of blend out. Now it would be nice also maybe to alternate colours for the different layers here. Again, that'll be something that you can try and mix and match. I'm actually going to stay with the same colour and perhaps put less on this time, so we get like a graduation of colour. But it might actually be, excuse me, might actually be quite nice just to mix in a bit of the almond frosting as well. That's such a lovely colour, real neutral in the background, which it's as, I find it as neutral as this painted eggshell colour is as well. I mean, that already just gives you, I just I just really love the effect of that ink and that blending. And I've just used 2 stencils. I mean, that in itself, if you wanted to just stencil the background here and just forget the bottom panel that goes into the flowers, if you just wanted to do these wooden slats, you can actually do that and cut these out. You'd have to use a trimmer because obviously we don't have a die, but you can stamp sentiments into that. You can use your little die cuts alphabets and make up sentiments and put them in the words as well, a bit similar to what I've done here, and actually use this as a sentiment background. So again, this makes this stencil work for you in different ways other than what it was originally designed for. But it may just be that little extra touch you might want on a different project. I've just used one colour and just different varying amounts, and it just gives you that graduation. I mean, even that in itself, I'd be inclined just to sort of cut that out. And maybe one of the nesting rectangles would be the right shape to cut that out. So maybe you could get the stitch detail or the bubble detail. So that's, you know, you can just bear that in mind. Anyway, so I'm coming on to stencil 4. So now we're coming on to some details for the flowers. So now I'm going to come in with my almond frosting, which is a lovely brown for these stems. We do have a brown in the ink collection. It's slightly darker and it's not quite right shade for this. But so this one works really well. Yeah. So we have the stems, and that's a really nice soft brown you can see there with that almond frosting. We don't need too much of that. Okay. So now I'm going to come in with the eucalyptus leaves, and this is such a lovely colour as well. Actually use a bigger brush, I think. This is quite a minty colour, a really fresh colour. So you should come in. Now you could come in with your finer stencil brushes, your white stencil brushes, and actually use different greens on the different areas of foliage here if you wanted to. Just to add a little bit of variation, this time I will come in with a stencil brush and pick up a bit of ink. And I think just on these leaves here, I'll add extra ink and just perhaps make that darker. That will just make them stand out a little bit more from the other leaves, just to add that little bit of variation. You could come in with a grey just to shade them all, or a slightly different green, or perhaps even a bit of yellow just to change the shade up a little bit. So perhaps if I do that, maybe I will come in with, tell you what I'll do, this leaf is the same as this one here, so let's add a bit of colour onto there. Okay, so that I used a slight bit of yellow there, not loads. Oh yeah, there we go. So we do have varying shades of green going on, which is probably more in keeping. So now we can come in with our next stencil. So we're on stencil 6, so we're halfway through. And this time it'll be the Margarita. So it's this really zesty green colour. So we have the flowers, and this is the stencil number 7, where we put the base colour of the flower on. So we don't want to go too dark at this stage because we need to layer other details on top of that. So just make sure that this brush is clean. Yeah. So I'm using the Coral Beach. Just give us a really nice peach background. There we are. So that'll give us a really nice base colour there for those flowers. And now we can start bringing in the stencils that start adding those details, as you can see. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change tack completely actually. And I'm going to add some shocking pink. But I'm going to do it in a really delicate way, and I'm not going to pick up too much ink at all. And what I might just be tempted to do is just use what is on the brush already, just to see. Now I will need to pick up a bit more ink, and I will blend that onto the spare amount of stencil that we have there, just so as I'm not going on too bold, because I really want this to blend in nicely. I don't want any unblended spots of ink, I suppose. And you can see that that shocking pink, although as the name suggests, it's really bold, and it looks really bold on the ink pad, and if you put it down on really quite intensely, then yes, obviously it does live up to its name, but you really can blend it to be such a pretty colour. So as I take that away, there we are, you can see the pink has been laid down there, but it really works really nicely with the peach in the background. So now we want to have the extra detail again onto those flowers, and this time I'll use the shocking pink also, but come in with a stencil brush. So I really do want to use a lot of ink this time, and coming straight in with all the ink that the brush has to offer, so that that detail sits nicely on top of the blended pink. There. And actually this is very fine detail, this stencil, and I'm using the largest brush, and you can see that even then I am able to get into all of that detail. There we are. So if we take that away, you can see that that pink sits lovely on top of what we blended underneath. So we're on stencil 10, so we've really have got through these quite quick. Now this time round I will use two different colours for this stencil. I'm going to use a yellow, so that will be the juicy pineapple for the centre of these flowers. I'll layer on that quite heavy. Now we could use that same yellow and go into the flowers here, but I want to go a different route on those, and I'll go back to the coral beach. So we have a similar base as we do to the other flowers, so we'll just blend that in. It will pick up a small amount of that yellow that you already have on the stencil, but that is absolutely fine. So we'll blend that in. So this is stencil 11, and here we can just give our foliage a bit more detail. So we come back to our eucalyptus leaves, and I shall, where's the brush? There we are. Bring my stencil brush in, and on the lighter areas I'm not going to go too dark, because I don't want to overwhelm what we have there already. Again, if you wanted to spend the time and really pick out those details with the smaller brushes, then that would be ideal, and that would look amazing. So we just make sure we work that in nicely into those smaller areas. And we want to go really dark onto those areas that we've already used the eucalyptus leaves. Now if you wanted, if you'd gone a lot darker on previous layers, you can actually use a grey or a blue perhaps, or even a brown on this layer, just to add that detail into the leaves underneath. But I think that will work just fine for me. Yes, it has. Look at that. You can see that that tone on tone green is lovely. Now we come on to the final stencil, and this is probably the most intricate of all the stencils, because it puts that final detailing onto the panelling. Now you can just leave that as you want. If you don't want to have the detailing of that panelling in the background, you can just leave that, because I think that would work really well. But obviously you'd perhaps do just want to finish off with the detailing of the flowers. Now for this, I was going to use the Early Sunrise, the orange. Now I'm just looking for... Just looking for my brush there. So we want to go quite dark on the stamens of these flowers, really to make those stand out. And then what's left on the brush, I just want to gently add onto those flowers onto the side. They've already got that peach base, just adding that little bit of orange on top, I think will just finish that off nicely. But obviously it will tie all in together with those other 3 flowers as well, because I've used at one stage or another the same colours, and I think that's what's so nice when you use ink on a project like this. You can really tie in those colours. Okay, I'll just show you the flowers there. They've been finished off lovely, and that combination of colours I think is just perfect. It really works so well. So there's not enough I can say about these things. It's you know, the amount of detail that Lisa goes into. So with the detailing on the panelling here, on this one I actually used the almond frosting, and that has worked really well because that is such a soft colour and works with the flowers. But I think what I might do this time is use the painted eggshell, just to see, because I'm curious as to what it would look like. And I just only picking up a small amount of ink, and I think I just want the bare minimum of detailing on that panelling, so I might just concentrate more on one side and really bring hopefully like a really nice airbrushed look across that panelling, just so that there's a hint there. What I will do is I'll just keep lifting that stencil just to make sure that I am putting enough ink down to get the look that I want there. Yeah, I think for me that is enough. There is just a tiny hint that we've got that detail in there in the background, and that is where I'll leave that. So if I turn that round and show you just how much detail there is, and you can see now why we needed all 12 of those stencils. So what I will do, I will die cut this now, and you can see just layering the die over the top of what we stenciled there. It's really quite straightforward, and we'll cut that out really nicely. So let me just do that, and it always makes it look so much more special once you die cut it, doesn't it? It really, it's a lovely sort of standalone piece, isn't it? I have to clean my die cutting plates though, it keeps leaving little marks on there. Okay. Ooh, right, oh, it's warm. Okay, so let's think about constructing the bookmark now. It's really not tricky at all. So as I say, you can die cut this and create this all from one A4 sheet. Let's just move that out of the way. So that's our stenciled panel. You need to cut another plain piece with your die cut, like so. And on the third piece, you need to die cut your panel, but don't die cut the top. Now to do this, okay, right, for this third piece, what you want to do, obviously put your die cut onto your cardstock there, but when you run this through your die cutting machine, you want to make sure that the end, let's do this round the other way, like that. That's not going to line up for me now. Anyway, you get the gist. So you line that up, but you want to make sure that the tail end of your die cut here is off of your cutting plates. So when you put that through the die cutting machine like that, you put it in through this way first. This tail end here is sticking out. Let me just check. Can you see that? Yeah. Yeah. This tail end is sticking out the back of the die cutting plates. And what that means is that you won't die cut the end of that your piece there. And that is for good reason, because we want to create a spine to this bookmark. Okay, here. And it's very rare that you'll get a sheet of cardstock, unless you've got A3 cardstock, that's long enough to join together like this, and that doesn't fit onto an A4 sheet lengthways. I did try, but it doesn't. So this is the other way to do it. Now what you can do, you take your favourite method of cutting, whether it be scissors or knife and ruler or your guillotine, and we just want to snip all the way up. So basically this die cut is going to be much longer than your other two. I'll take that off there. And because you've got a nice straight edge running along the most of this, it gives you a really nice guideline. So just follow that line all the way up. And you can see the die cut is now a lot taller, but we want to have this extra piece. Now I'll bring in my ultimate again, because I'll use the score board that's on the back. Okay. And you'll notice again, I'm not doing any measurements or using numbers. It really is just sort of lining everything up. So I've taken the two plain pieces, the longer one and the standard one, line them up together. So turn it round, so now you can see where the two meet. And if you line up on your scoreboard along the length of the shorter one, and just use a scoring tool and score the line, what that then enables you to, gives you that chance to create a flap and join them together. Now, depending on the size of the cardstock that you're using, this part is going to be bigger or shorter. For somehow, on the last one I made, this sort of overlap only ended up just short of 1 centimetre, whereas this one is a bit longer. I don't know how I managed that, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you'd prefer to cut that so it's smaller, then go ahead, you know, by all means then to do that. But what we can now do is just use our glue and attach that, and we have basically our bookmark there. So what we can do now simply is to just add your stenciled layer onto the front of that. And now there's just different ways you can embellish this, I guess. We've got some lovely stamps. The scripted sentiments would be a really nice thing. So if you know someone with a particular event, or you just want to convey a certain message on to them, it might be really nice just to stamp that up the side there in a black ink, and that just make that really simple, and that's just a really nice reminder. And that just, I think that just is a really subtle, thoughtful gift to somebody who just might need a bit of a lift. So that's one way of embellishing it. You can use the larger letters and stencils, and you can use the same colours for the floral embellishments as you've used here. So that would work really well. You can use a set like this, the bunting and the banners with a die set. Now the advantage of this, it has a lovely little alphabet that you can die cut. and depending on the name or the message you want to convey, actually you can probably put most messages or names on using this die set. And let me just get that out of there. Okay. So if it was a longer name or a longer message, then obviously you might want to layer it up this way here. Or if it's a shorter name that can fit widthways, then obviously that works just as well like that. So this is the die set with the letters, that you die cut all the letters all at once, which I think is a really nice idea. And what I've done, I've just taken myself, again, some of Lisa's cardstock, the super smooth cardstock, and I've just, before I've die cut or done anything, I've just colour tinted it with one of the colours that came out of the flowers that I've used. So in this case, I've used the Coral Beach, as you can see. And actually, that's a good reference point, actually. The colours that Lisa has put on the lids here are about as close as they can possibly be to the true colours, which is a really nice reference as well. So before I die cut this, I colour tinted it with the Coral Beach. Then I layered it onto some double-sided adhesive. Lisa does have, this is Lisa's one, this is about all I've got left now, so I'm going to have to sort of get some myself. So I've layered that onto the double-sided adhesive, then I've die cut it, so now essentially I've made myself some alphabet stickers. That, because these are so fine and so intricate, it makes it so much easier to add to your project. If you don't have that, of course, then a fine tip applicator with your glue would be absolutely perfect, and you know that it won't be going anywhere. Also in this set you have the bunting and the banners. So I thought that this time around, just to try and do something a little bit different, I thought the bunting might look quite nice on there. Now, if you did want to add a name, then you might be a little bit restricted as to how much you use, but just have, you know, a little play around and see what you can make work. But I think what I might do, I've die cut the bunting, or would this be the banner? That's a discussion, isn't it? Before I'd done that, I actually die cut this from Lisa's white cardigan, but I'd colour tinted this with the shocking pink. Just a really, really small amount, because I wanted this to be sort of quite pale in the background. Now what I'm going to do, I'm only going to snip off 3 of those, because that will fit nicely down there, I think. And I can use a bit of glue. Because we've got such a delicate connection between those, it means we can actually angle those banners quite nicely like that. Now I want to make use of these bows, of course, because they're so pretty. So what I can do, I can just snip those off the ends there and just reuse them, and you'd never know that that wasn't a bespoke little banner. So although Lisa's designed it with the bunting, with 6 letters in between, there's no reason why you can't adapt it for yourself. And if you were doing a larger project actually and you needed a bigger name, you could snip them off again, add on the extra banners for the amount of letters that you need, and then reapply the bows on either end. So again, you can make it work for you. And now we can take our letters, and actually when you back this with the self-adhesive sheet, you don't necessarily need to be able to cut all the way through. As long as the cardstock cuts, you don't need the adhesive to cut all the way through. So then we can put our letters on there. And again, we have another nice little customised bookmark. I think it's just a nice little gift, isn't it? It's just something a bit different, don't you reckon? And actually, thinking about it, when I was looking for the cardstock to actually joined together to make this. I did wonder if using a DL card, and you can see here I've taken myself a DL card blank and I've die cut the shape from the DL card blank, and to do that I've actually lined up the die and just made sure that this section here literally just hangs off the edge of the spine, and that's worked. I've run that through the die cutting machine and that's given us a card blank in the shape of this panel. So if you imagine now, if you attach this to the front of a card blank, you'd actually have a really nice little gift card, wouldn't you? Or maybe an invitation. So perhaps we just need to add the magnets now. So I've cut myself 2 small amounts of the self-adhesive magnets. They do join together like so, and the way to join this is you keep them joined. You've got the self-adhesive on both sides, but remove the adhesive just from one part. Line that up on the inside of your bookmark with the adhesive side showing upwards, I would say. Then you can just close your bookmark in on that, and that would pick up your the magnets. So when you flip this over, open the bookmark, keep the magnets together, remove the other piece of the covering of the adhesive, keep the bookmarks together, keep the magnets together, close the bookmark, and then you know that your magnets will line up with each other on the inside. There we are. So that's how we put together the bookmark. I say it's really straightforward, something simple, but just a really nice little present. Or you can create yourself a pretty little invite that will be ideal for I don't know, a garden party, or the 21st birthday if you've got a tropical theme, a party theme. But yeah, it's just a really nice idea to use your tropical stencil. So take care everyone, enjoy the shows, and we see you soon.